Welcome back to the Rebel Movement podcast, your favorite no BS business podcast where four established entrepreneurs give you tools and resources to build your business your way. Today you're with me, Gráinne O'Malley, and today we're talking about how you can speak to the four different buyer types in your marketing content. And the reason why I wanted to cover this was because if you know me at all, you'll know that I am not a huge fan of creating content for social media, especially just for the sake of being consistent. Okay. So when I create content, I want to be really intentional about the content that I'm creating and how it's going to land with the people that I want to connect with. And this is especially important when you're promoting something, when you're in sales mode, when you've got a new offer coming out, when you're in a launch. Really, really important that you understand the four different buyer types. So I want to take you through some of this today. If you've heard about the buyer types before, I hope that you'll learn something new. If you've never heard about buyer types before, I hope that you are ready to have your mind blown a little bit, because when we know these pieces of information, it can make the process of creating sales and marketing content so much easier. We're so much more able to connect with the people we want to connect with on a deep level that makes them want to come into our world, that makes them want to get to know us better. And ultimately, that moves them from being somebody who's interested in what it is that you're saying to somebody who really wants to buy from you. So let's start with talking about what buyer types are first and foremost. I want you to think about the four different buyer types as four distinct groups of consumers. Okay. So four distinct groups who have different ways of deciding how to buy and what to buy. Each group has its own habits, has its own preferences, has its own motivations. And when you can understand these types, you can start to adjust your marketing to connect more deeply with each group. And that not only helps you to boost how engaged people are with the message that you're putting out, but it also really increases your chances of turning that interest into sales. So, as I've said, there's four buyer types, and generally, each and every one of us will fit into one or two of these buyer types. So, as you're listening to these descriptions that I'm going to go through, start to think about which buyer type you fit into too. So, with these buyer types, when you start to communicate with potential customers and potential clients, it's really helpful to be able to identify the type of buyer that they are. All right. So if you're hopping on a sales call with somebody, this can be really useful for you. But also, if it's a thing that you are creating content for social media where you're not showing up and having a one-to-one conversation with someone, it's going to be able to help you, or it's going to help you to communicate with this wider audience in a way that connects with each of those four buyer types in a deeper way. It's going to give them the information that they need and the support that they need in order to be able to make a decision to buy from you. So each buyer needs a particular approach. Each buyer needs a particular level of information or input in order to be able to make a buying decision. So in your content, whether it's a sales page for a new offer or service, whether it is blog posts or social media content, it's a really good idea to include approaches to creating your content that are tailored to each of these four buyer types. And you want to be keeping these in mind as you are mapping out your sales content, as you're having sales conversations. And generally, each and every one of us fits into one or two of these buyer types. So as I'm going through this content, start to think about which buyer type you are, because that's going to help you to really start to understand these concepts. And also, it's going to make it easier for you to start to bring these buyer types into the mix when you're having sales conversations or when you're planning sales content. So, when you are starting to communicate with potential clients and customers, if you are getting onto sales calls, or if you're at a networking event, or you're speaking to them within group situations, for example, it's really helpful to be able to identify the type of buyer that they are when you're having these conversations, because that's going to help you to communicate with them in a way that really connects with them and that gives them all the information and the support that they need in order to be able to make a decision to buy. So, each buyer type needs a particular approach, needs a particular level of information or input in order to be able to make a decision to buy. So, in your content, whether it's a sales page for a new offer or a service, whether it is blog posts, whether it is social media content, it's a really good idea to include approaches to creating your content that are tailored to each buyer type. Okay. So the first buyer type you want to be thinking about when you are creating your content or whether you're having sales conversations is the analytical buyer. And analytical buyers are really motivated by logic, really motivated by information. They tend to have perfectionist tendencies. They like attention to detail. So when you're having conversations with them, sometimes they might seem a little bit withdrawn or even a little bit disinterested or indecisive. And really, where that's coming from is because if you're feeling that from them, it's generally because they don't have all of the information that they need right at that moment to be able to make a decision to buy. All right. So for that type of buyer, you want to really make sure that they feel that this is the right decision for them and it's the right fit for them at this time. So analytical buyers are really interested in information. They're really interested in accuracy, really interested in attention to detail. So you want to give them as much information as you possibly can. Now, when you are listening and learning here about these 4 different buyer types, I want you to think about if you were in launch mode, okay? You've got something that's coming out, a new product, a new service, a new offer, and you're trying to figure out your messaging around that particular thing. You do not need to be speaking to the 4 buyer types in every piece of content that you create. But what you want to do is think about how can I incorporate pieces of content that speak to these 4 buyer types so that when they're consuming my content, they get the information that they need, they get the approach that they need, they feel supported and safe enough to be able to make a buying decision. So for analytical buyers, they're the people that you want to be giving all the information on what your offer is, how it came to be, what they get from this offers, from whether it's a service or a product, what the price is, how the purchasing process works, all of that. Okay. They want all of the information. And then you really want to give them time to consider all that information, to digest it without feeling pressure to make a decision to buy within a particular time frame. So to do that, to give them that information, you can share statistics, you can share testimonials, you can share case studies. This is how you can create content that speaks to this type of buyer. That's the kind of content that backs up what it is that you're telling them and that gives them all the information in a way that's interesting and in a way that's motivational for them too. So the second type of buyer then after analytical buyers are your amiable buyers. Now, amiable buyers are motivated by safety and stability, right? They like to have balance in their lives, but they also really want to make everyone happy. All right. They want to live in this peaceful existence. So they really worry about how their buying choices might affect other people, which means it can be difficult for them to make big decisions. So their decision-making process is going to be slower because amiable buyers really crave this calmness and consistency in their lives. They don't really like a lot of change. So with amiable buyers, you really want to be able to build rapport with them. All right. That's what's going to be key in engaging with that kind of buyer type. You want to be able to show them a clear overview of what you're offering and show them how easy it's going to be for you to work or for them to work with you, how easy the process of purchasing from you is going to be, the ease and flow that it's going to bring to their life and their world, how it's not going to create any sense of chaos or it's not going to throw anything off kilter for them. You want to really build a sense of security and build a sense of trust with them. All right. That's what amiable buyers want to see in your content or what they want to hear from you if you're hopping on a sales call with them or having a sales conversation in any format. The third buyer type then is the driver buyer. And driver buyers are really motivated by a sense of power, all right? By having respect, by having power. They tend to have a fear around being taken advantage of. And they also tend to be very concerned about their self-image. So how they are seen, how they are perceived by others. So this can sometimes come across as a little bit aggressive or a little bit controlling, but generally that sense of aggression or control is coming directly from those fears that they have. So, how do you sell to driver buyers? Firstly, you want to really show them proof of why you're good at what you do. They do not care about you just talking about how great you are and how amazing this offer is. They want to see what other people have thought about what you do. All right. Remember, this sense of self, this concern about what other people think about them is going to come into play here. They also don't care to be bombarded with huge amounts of information. So you want to make the information that you give to them brief, to the point, and factual. All right. Show them proof of why you're good at what you do. Share facts, share results, share your social proof. It's coming in here. Okay. And then you want to also help them to really feel like they have a sense of control over the purchasing process. So think about how you can give them options to choose from, whether that's pricing, whether it's payment plans, whether it's different levels of what you offer in your services. How can you give them a sense of control so that they feel like they're choosing what they want, not that you're selling what you think is a good fit for them? All right, that's driver buyers. And then finally, our fourth buyer is the expressive buyer. Expressive buyers are really motivated by approval, by recognition. They really want to be part of something, okay? They want to feel like your friend. They want to feel like a really important part of your world. They really deeply value relationships and they look for authentic relationships in people that they invest in. So whether that's that they're investing in a person, if you are a coach or a service provider, whether it is that they're investing in a service or an offer, they need to feel a deep connection with that service or offer that they're investing in. All right. So when you're selling to expressive buyers, it's really important to spend some time developing a sense of a relationship with them. So when you're thinking about content, they're going to really react well to you sharing some behind the scenes, sharing a little bit more of your personal brand, personal information. So they feel like they get to know the human behind the business. You can do this by sharing behind the scenes content. You can do it by sharing testimonials that are personal, um, that you can weave in anecdotes into. That's really going to show them the process and the connections that you make with people. Um, what can you do? What can you bring into your content that's going to help them feel connected to you as a person behind the business, as you start to tell them more about what you do and what it is that you're selling? All right. So you want to try to show them that your product or service is going to elevate their self image and their relationships. That's what expressive buyers are after. So that is the four buyer types in a nutshell. Now, that should really give you a good overview of how you can start to tailor your messaging, tailor your marketing approach to be able to speak to those four buyer types. And if you do this, if you start to bring this into the way that you structure your content, not only does it make creating content much easier, but it makes it way more effective too. So it helps you to be able to give the people that you want to be connecting with the information that they need to feel safe to buy from you. All right. To feel connected to you, to feel like they know and trust you and like you, which is obviously what we're trying to do through content creation. But it also gives you a way of maximizing the return that you get on the content that you create, especially if you are in launch mode. So I hope that you got a lot from that. I would love to hear your questions. I would love to hear your feedback on it. Please drop me a message. You'll find me at Living Business Project. You can comment on the podcast. Make sure to drop a review if it was something that you enjoyed, or share it with anybody else that you think will benefit from this. And if you do want more actionable podcast episodes like this one, then make sure you hit subscribe, because we've got new episodes of the podcast dropping every single week that blend human design, feminine energetics, community building, nervous system regulation, marketing, messaging, you name it, it's in this podcast. Everything you need to know about navigating entrepreneurship. All right, it's inside what we do at the Rebel Movement. So if you want to take that further, If you're ready to really embody intuitive entrepreneurship in 2024, then the Rebel Movement membership can be your new home. So, this is where we support you daily to create your business on your terms. If you're interested in finding out more about the membership, make sure to check the description below for an exclusive listener offer. And until next time, have a beautiful rest of your day.